Well, you know what that means. It means it's another edition of your voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason, of Beyond Reason Radio, right here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. And I'm joined and on Facebook Live, by the way. A lot of people watching on Facebook Live already. And I'm joined, of course, by producing today, Tom Benton as well. How are you, Tom?
I am doing just fine. It's the big show is on the air. 2 hours tonight.
Yes, the big show. I like it.
If only there was something to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I do the morning show. I produce the morning show. I'm here in the morning. I have to do work after. I go home. I take a nap for like 3 hours because, then I come back and do this show.
Yeah.
So I go home, I take a nap, and I wake up and I'm like, okay, what am I going to talk about? And immediately, there it is, Donald Trump's press conference, a whole slew of things that he said in his press conference and a whole bunch of other news, and I can't get it all in 2 hours. But we will try. We will try today to get it all in just 2 hours. And your voice of reason will sift through it all because some of it is, of course, beyond reason. By the way, if you want to call into the show, you can at 407-916-5400, or you can text to 23680. So we're going to get into Trump's press conference. We're going to get into the whole Russia thing, the Mike Flynn thing. There's some new developments about that, about the National Security Advisor resigning because he lied to the vice president or withheld information from the vice president in terms that he spoke with Russia before Trump was inaugurated. We're going to get into more of the media reaction, parts of the media reaction on that. I want to get into Obamacare as well because Rand Paul yesterday had a press conference with the Congressional Freedom Caucus on their plan, but he's pretty upset at what Congress is doing. And today is also the day of immigrants, where all these immigrants boycotted going to work, apparently, because they don't like Trump and they wanted to prove, I guess, that the country couldn't run without him. But it seems like, everything was just fine. I mean, if you want to prove your point, you might want to find a better way to do it. But the big news today is Trump had a press conference and, just outlining everything, outlining his presidency so far, outlining his take on the media, outlining the whole Russian thing. And I don't want to get into all of it. The whole thing, it was like, 2 hours long or something. But I want to start with this. And this is a big I told you so. This is a big reason why you should listen to Yaffee. Because I told you this was going to happen. And a lot of people didn't think this was going to happen, and I think it's going to happen even more, at least at first. I don't know if it will continue on forever, but it will. Rasmussen, today, they have a new poll out, daily presidential tracking poll. Donald Trump's approval rating is up to 55%. 55%. There was a big part of Obama's administration where he couldn't get above 50. Now, at first he had above 50, so it's early. And 45% disapprove. Now, when you break it down, it's even more interesting. 38% strongly approve, while 36% strongly disapprove. And people, and I know there's leftists out there, and I know there's regular people out there that don't understand this. They cannot understand how is it even possible that Trump has a 55% approval rating in any poll anywhere. And there's other polls that don't have him in that high, but had him going up because his low, I think, was 42% when he got in office. It was pretty low. And the trend is going up. And people don't get it. People I talk to don't understand how this is possible. And I told you after the whole thing, when he called CNN fake news, that whole press conference, when he went after the media, and he said, I'm going to talk directly to the people, and he gets on Twitter and he talks directly to the people. I told you, whether you like what Trump is doing or not, personally, whether, you disagree with the whole fake news thing, I'm telling you, this is going to be popular because there are a lot of people in this country right now who don't trust politicians because they feel like politicians constantly lie to them. And they don't trust a lot of the media outlets because they think the media outlets are biased and are lying. And some of them are fake news. And whether you agree with that or not, this is a popular opinion in the country. So when Trump gets up there and he says, I'm going to talk directly to the American people, and he calls out some of these media outlets telling them they're dishonest, calls them out as fake news, people are going to like it. People are going to approve of it. Not only that, But the biggest thing that the Democrats made a mistake in the campaign, they made this mistake in the campaign, and they're still making this mistake now, is they keep trying to define Trump's presidency based on his personality, based on his, he's just not a good person, or he's crude, or he's unhinged, like they said. He says crazy things sometimes. He goes on Twitter and says crazy things sometimes. And I agree with that. I agree. He a lot of stuff he says he probably shouldn't say. He says crazy things. But the Democrats and a lot of left in the media, they're going directly to that. They're telling you, oh, well, Trump's saying all these crazy things. He's going to be so unpopular. Saturday Night Live is making fun of him every week. Their whole show is practically about Trump now and his administration. So they're telling us that we should hate him because of who he is as a person. And I'm telling you, there's a lot of people in this country that know he's not really a great person, that know he's kind of a narcissist, that know he's kind of crude, that know he says things maybe he shouldn't say, and they don't care. They don't care. Why? Because they just want someone who can get things done. That's it. And they feel like even though Trump is saying all these crazy things, that Trump is kind of unorthodox, that Trump is kind of weird at times, they also see what he's doing and what he's accomplishing, and they separate that from who he is as a person. I told people during the campaign, it's not about who Trump is as a person. It's about the idea of Trump. It's the fact he's not a politician. He's a businessman, and he's the guy who can get things done. Well, now he's president, and they don't care about who he is as a person. They just feel like he is the man to get things done. So when I look at a poll, and I look at the Rasmussen poll that shows his approval up to 55%, you could say maybe it's a fluke, but I think a lot of approval for him is going to go up because of that reason. Do you agree or disagree with me? Do you think it will continue to go up? 407-916-5400, text to 23680. So I want to get into Trump's press conference here, because he has a lot of things he said. We can't go through it all, but this first cut, it's a little long here. Is Trump? He talks about the media, like I said, and then he talks about he wants to talk directly to the American people. Go ahead and play that cut for me, Tom.
With the media present, which is an honor to have you this morning, because many of our nation's reporters and folks will not tell you the truth and will not treat the wonderful people of our country with the respect that they deserve. And I hope going forward we can be a little bit different and maybe get along a little bit better if that's possible. Maybe it's not, and that's okay too. Unfortunately, much of the media in Washington, D.C., along with New York, Los Angeles in particular, speaks not for the people, but for the special interests and for those profiting off a very, very obviously broken system. The press has become so dishonest that if we don't talk about it, we are doing a tremendous disservice to the American people. Tremendous disservice. We have to talk about it to find out what's going on, because the press honestly is out of control. The level of dishonesty is out of control. I ran for president to represent the citizens of our country. I am here to change the broken system so it serves their families and their communities well. I am talking and really talking on this very entrenched power structure, and what we're doing is we're talking about the power structure. We're talking about its entrenchment. As a result, the media is going through what they have to go through to oftentimes distort, not all the time, and some of the media is fantastic, I have to say. They're honest and fantastic. But much of it is not. The distortion, and we'll talk about it, you'll be able to ask me questions about it. But we're not going to let it happen, because I'm here again to take my message straight to the people.
Whether you like his attacks on the media or not, I'm telling you that's popular, because he gets up there and he goes, I'm going to go around the media and I'm going to talk directly to the American people. And the fact is, people want that right now. People appreciate that right now because they don't trust a lot of the media. They don't trust politicians, but you have a president who says, I'm just going to talk straight to you and I'm going to say exactly what we've been doing and exactly what we need to accomplish. And people are going to respond to that. People are going to respect that. The Democrats are going to continue to make it who he is as a person, and people don't care. They don't care. I mean, there's been a lot of dumb, immoral presidents. You just look at Bill Clinton, for one. He wasn't exactly the beacon of morality. And yet, people liked him because the country was doing well at the time. So if Trump can get to a point where he accomplishes a lot of things, if he can get to the point where the country is doing better, they're going to ignore his craziness. They're going to ignore some of the crazy things that he says and some of the crude things or rude things or whatever that he says. Now, this is coming from someone, me, who doesn't like the crazy things he says, who doesn't like his approach a lot of the time. I really didn't like it in the campaign. I didn't like the scorched earth tactics. I didn't like a lot of his approach, but I'm just standing back here as an observer, and I'm just telling you what's going to happen. And it's already starting to happen. Now, Trump, in this next cut I have here, he talks about the mess that he inherited. Here it is.
To be honest, I inherited a mess. It's a mess. At home and abroad, a mess. Jobs are pouring out of the country. You see what's going on with all of the companies leaving our country, going to Mexico and other places. Low pay, low wages, mass instability overseas, no matter where you look. The Middle East, a disaster. North Korea, we'll take care of it, folks. We're going to take care of it all. I just want to let you know, I inherited a mess. Beginning on day one, our administration went to work to tackle these challenges.
So right there, people are going to respond to that because they understand that it's a mess. I mean, they see a guy who's an outsider who goes in there, who kind of, not a politician, doesn't have experience of this, goes in there and says, what have these politicians been doing all this time? And he sees what's going on in the world, he sees what's going on in his administration, and they admit that it's a mess. And they're going to agree. And yet the Democrats are going to say, well, he should be impeached, well this, well that, and it's just, I'm telling you, it's not going to work. I mean, it doesn't matter. Republicans own Congress right now, so they couldn't, impeach him anyway. So they're going to make it about these crazy things Trump says, and then they're going to make it maybe about, his whole thing against immigrants. And today is the day of the immigrant or whatever, or a lot of immigrants boycotted. And but then you look at polls, and a lot of the American people support that. And then you have Hispanics who even support some of that and some of the strong border. And you even have Muslims, Syrians who came here years ago who support what Trump is doing. So when people see that and then they see all the outrage, they don't understand the outrage. They just want someone who's going to accomplish things. And, the left and certain parts of the media keep acting like their hair is on fire, keep going crazy every time Trump breathes. And it's not going to work. They're going to lose their credibility. Now, I'm going to address the whole Russia thing. There's a lot more going down with that in the next segment because Trump addressed that as well in his press conference. If you want to give your take on any of this, you can call 407-916-5400. You can text to 23680. We are also on Facebook Live as well. Just like us on Facebook at WFLA Orlando or at Beyond Reason Radio, or you can send me a friend request. Just search Michael Yaffee and I will accept it. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, and we will be right back.
You want to listen to Beyond Reason Radio live on your smartphone? Download the Beyond Reason Radio app now. Available in the Google Play or Apple App Stores. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Orlando Smart Talk Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee, joined by Tom Benson producing as well. You can call 407-916-5400. Text to 23680 as well. We've been talking about Trump's press conference today, and I've been giving my take on why I believe Trump is growing in popularity. The approval ratings, Rasmussen has him at 55%. Other polls have him higher than they were, and people are surprised. The left, I'm sure, is shocked by this. I just talked to someone in the hallway here who was telling me, he was basically saying, oh, the American people don't believe Trump. They don't like Trump or something. And I said, his approval rating's up to 55% today, because he was complaining that Trump always says fake news. And I'm saying, well, the problem is the media, every time that Trump breathes, the media goes crazy. So they respond to the fake news thing. And then he said, well, there is no fake news. And then, this whole thing, I don't even know. Even if it's not fake, it's definitely biased. But I want to get back into, speaking of that, Trump Trump went on the offensive on this whole Russia thing because there's all this talk about Russia being in bed with Trump or something. I mean, you had Keith Olbermann basically say, Trump is a Russian KGB agent or something. And I pointed out last week that some of this doesn't make any sense because you look at what Russia's doing off our East Coast with a ship. They're buzzing our ships with their planes. And I'm thinking, okay, if they're best friends, why is Russia doing this? And the fact is Trump hasn't gotten rid of any sanctions on Russia yet. So what's the big relationship? Now, there is no doubt that Trump wants a better relationship with Russia. And it seems like the biggest reason he wants to do that is because he wants Russia to fight ISIS for us. That seems to be one of the biggest reasons. There's all kinds of speculation. Oh, well, he has money there and everything, and Trump addressed that. But here is this cut 3 on Trump for me, Tom, about what Trump said about Russia in the news conference.
And I can tell you, speaking for myself, I own nothing in Russia. I have no loans in Russia. I don't have any deals in Russia. President Putin called me up very nicely to congratulate me on the win of the election. He then called me up extremely nicely to congratulate me on the inauguration, which was terrific. But so did many other leaders, almost all other leaders from almost all other countries. So that's the extent. Russia is fake news. This is fake news put out by the media.
So everything I've seen so far, the media, and I have a report right here what people are saying about the whole Russia thing, and they have no evidence. They have no evidence. All the only evidence we have right now of any connection between the Trump administration and Russia is Mike Flynn, right before Trump was inaugurated, maybe 3 weeks before, talked to the ambassador of Russia maybe about sanctions. And everyone knew he was going to be a national security advisor anyway. And Trump was already elected. That's all we know. That's it. And they've made it a big deal, and they're saying this could be the next Watergate. In fact, that's what Politico Out of Peace asking, is this the next Watergate? Dan Rather was on somewhere, and he said, Watergate is the biggest political scandal of my lifetime until maybe now. That's what Rather wrote. So they're saying it's the next Watergate, and I have some cuts on later that I'm going to get to on that as well. But Trump, once again, in the press conference, addressed the whole Russia thing, and this is what he said.
It happened when, if you were Putin right now, you would say, hey, we're back to the old games with the United States. There's no way Trump can ever do a deal with us because the public, you have to understand, if I was just brutal on Russia right now, just brutal, people would say, you would say, oh, isn't that wonderful? But I know you well enough. Then you would say, he was too tough. He shouldn't have done that.
I think he's actually right there, that they would complain, okay, he's not tough enough on Russia because he's in bed with Russia. So if he actually responded to what Russia's doing right now, then they would say he's too tough. Is he starting another world war? Is he going to start a World War III? Trust me, that's how this goes. That's how this goes. I'm telling you, despite all of this craziness that they're trying to make this out to be in the Trump administration, Trump is going to be more popular. People don't care right now about his personality. All they want is someone who will get things done. And right now he is getting things done. He had the immigration executive order. Unfortunately, the court was crazy, and I talked about that in a previous show, why they overturned it. But he's repealing regulations. He repealed regulations in Dodd-Frank. He's meeting with world leaders. He met with Netanyahu yesterday, and they talked about maybe a solution there. Stuff like that, people are going to respond to that. 407-916-5400. You can text to 23680. Let's take a call here real quick from Bob in Longwood. Bob, how are you today?
Fine, thank you, Michael. What I can't understand, Japan attacked us at Pearl Harbor, right?
Yes.
And a lot of Muslims came out of there, took down the Twin Towers in New York, right? I want to know, what did Russia ever do? Did they ever attack us? Because I know
They attacked our allies.
Yeah, they fought during World War II, and
took over half of Europe.
Yeah, or what they did.
And then built a wall around Berlin.
Yeah, they stopped the Germans, but they stopped the Germans. And that was the most important thing.
Yeah, but then they wouldn't. Then they stopped half the Europe of becoming free and made them communist. And then they
I
put
understand
nuclear
that,
weapons in Cuba.
But I'm saying, did they ever attack us?
Did they ever attack? Do you think they wouldn't have if we didn't have nuclear weapons?
Well, they had. Actually, we do, and they do.
I know, but
So
that's why they
that's
didn't attack us, but they wanted to.
Well,
And they are attacking us through cyber warfare, are they not?
I don't know. You know that?
There's been, I'm pretty sure it's happening. There's been lots of reports on that. Even Trump's admitted that.
Okay, well, fine. But they still didn't attack us on a home front like the Japanese did, or with the Muslims from Yemen.
Well, what is your point exactly?
Well, my point is I can't understand why we're worrying about Russia anyway. I'd worry about Iran. I would worry about North Korea.
Can't we worry about all three?
Yeah, and they actually in China, too.
Okay.
Because what happened to this country, Obama weakened this country.
Yes.
He weakened it for the last 8 years with our service and everything like that. That's why you might have a ship over there 30 miles out in the national waters because of because of Obama.
Okay. I agree. I agree with that.
That's right. And Hillary Clinton.
But you're kind of saying we shouldn't care that they have a ship out there.
Well, you can't do nothing to it. They're in international water. So what are you going to go for? Blow it up?
No, but I mean, shouldn't we be at least concerned about it?
Well, I'm pretty sure Trump is.
Okay.
Sure. Why not? I mean, you're concerned, but you cannot take it out. I mean, what are you going to do?
Well, no one's saying you should take it out, but...
Well, or they asked him today, what are you going to do about it? Well, what can he do? It's in the international waters.
Well, I mean, yeah, I agree with that. If he did do something about it, then they would have complained about what he did about it.
Yeah. And I'm sure we got submarines over there by the Russians over there and everything like that, spying on them. We're spying on everybody, too. You know what I mean? But it's in international waters. And what are you going to do? You know? But the whole idea, what I'm saying is, I'd worry about, my point is Obama weakened this country. And they're going to test us.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that completely. Thanks, Bob, for your call. He was kind of all over the place. At first, he was trying to say, well, why we even care about Russia, but then he kind of agreed later maybe we should care about Russia. And I don't know. I mean, obviously, we should care about Russia because you talk about Iran. Well, Russia's dealing with Iran. Russia has direct ties to Iran and China.
And Syria.
And Syria. So all of those places are enemies, and we have to deal with Russia. Plus, Putin invaded our ally in Georgia and Ukraine, and we have NATO responsibilities. Plus, I mean... You know, just because they haven't attacked us directly, the main reason they didn't attack us directly, they attacked us many ways indirectly, but it's because we had nuclear weapons and we had mutual assured destruction. But Putin is definitely trying to attack us, and if we just, and this goes back to this whole theory that if we back out from the rest of the world, they'll just leave us alone, which never, ever, ever, ever happens. Especially when you have a world full of trade. We have to protect our trade with other countries as well. 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. I'm going to get more into some of the media reaction with Flynn and what I think about it. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, and we will be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. Beyond Reason Radio continues now.
Welcome back. I know you needed a voice of reason today. You need a voice of reason every day, and this is the best place to get the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, joined by Tom Benson producing. If you missed any of the show, I will post the podcast of the entire show pretty much anywhere podcasts are available. The best way to get it, though, is to download the Beyond Reason Radio app. Download the Beyond Reason Radio app. All the podcasts are there. And by the way, you can send me a friend request on Facebook. Send me a friend request on Facebook. I will accept it. I'm posting stuff all the time on Facebook these days. Lots of debates that go on when I post stuff on Facebook. So it's a lot of fun. So that's good. By the way, also, if you go to the News Radio 1025 WFLA page, 1025WFLA.com, there is a new Beyond Reason blog page. So click on the Good Morning Orlando tab, and then below that, it says Beyond Reason blog. I wrote a piece today. A blog piece today that you'll definitely want to check out. I posted it on my Facebook as well. You'll definitely want to check it out. I wrote it about the whole not the Russia thing, the whole Israeli meeting between Netanyahu and Trump, and my thoughts on the whole debate on two-state solution and what Netanyahu said. And we're actually going to address that later in the show as well. But if you want to get a heads up on that, go ahead and read my blog piece. It's called The Beyond Reason Israeli Deal. You know, quote unquote deal is what I put there. So go ahead and read that and check that out, and we'll talk about that later in the show. So we were talking about a lot about how the media, and, there's a part of me that hates using the term the media, because what does that mean? There's a lot of media now. There's so many different sources of media. When you say the media, I'm in the media. So when I say, I'll just say certain media outlets have gone kind of crazy when it comes to the whole Mike Flynn thing. And a good example of this would be Chuck Todd. I have audio here of Chuck Todd on one of the Meet the Press daily shows, and he started the show by saying this.
One of what is arguably the biggest presidential scandal involving a foreign government since Iran-Contra. Take a breath. Hyperbole aside, folks, hunker down, because this is a Class 5 political hurricane that's hitting Washington.
A Class 5 political hurricane. He even used the words hunker down. Don't we know that word in Florida. We know that sentence in Florida. Hunker down. We love that. I hear that all the time when there's our actual hurricane here. But Chuck Todd comes out and he says a Class 5 political hurricane because Mike Flynn had to resign. Is this the biggest scandal since Iran-Contra?
What he doesn't realize is 98% of the people don't live in Washington. To them, it's not the big hurricane that he's talking about.
Well, of course. And that's the whole point I'm trying to make here. It's not what – somebody tell me what's the big hurricane. What's the big hurricane? What's the big deal? Come on, Tom Benson, let me know. I really want to know.
All right, the worst thing you can think of is Flynn wasn't as truthful as he could have been with Pence. And
we know that.
Right, well, there you go. That's it. So other than that, I don't know much of anything else.
And what this actually shows, if people don't like Trump, what that actually shows is Mike Pence has a lot of pull in the Trump administration, which maybe is a good thing. Maybe he can balance out the administration.
People are just throwing stuff on the wall and seeing what would stick.
Well, it seems like what they're trying to imply is that Trump has deep illegal ties to Russia and Putin. That happened in the campaign, and that it's happening as an administration. But there's no proof.
As if Trump sold that uranium to Russia.
Yeah, I know. And
Hello.
They ignored that.
Yeah.
They ignored when Obama said to the president of Russia at the time, wait till after I'm elected and we'll have more flexibility. They ignore all this stuff. This kind of talks with other countries has been going on forever. You think the Trump administration is the first one? I mean, Ted Kennedy. They found evidence that Ted Kennedy, during the campaign of Ronald Reagan, the second campaign, went over to Russia and talked to them about trying to get to ruin Ronald Reagan's campaign.
And as Rush would say, Mary Jo was nowhere to be found to comment.
So, and I think the best way to sum up that whole kerfuffle, you like that kerfuffle? That's a good word. That whole kerfuffle of the media is Ben Shapiro here. He was on Fox News last night with the First 100 Days show with Martha McCallum. And he had, he's the editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire. He had perfect comment on all this. And it's exactly, if you've been listening to me, it's exactly what I've been saying. It's exactly what I've been saying to the left. I'm actually giving the left advice here, the media advice here. And Ben Shapiro basically says the same thing. Here it is.
I mean, everybody sounds like a used car salesman trying to hawk an old Chevy. I mean, wow, it's the level of outrage over something that we don't even know what happened yet. I mean, I'm still confused as to what Flynn did that was supposed to be the worst thing that ever happened since the biblical plagues. And between Thomas Friedman, who apparently has the brain power of an overused hairdryer, and Dan Rather, the godfather of modern media fake news, talking about how this is the greatest crisis that we've ever seen in modern political history. Again, what happened? It's a very simple. Like, should we know what happened before we start to freak out and lose our mind? Some advice for the media, guys. If you want people to take you seriously, you have to stop setting your hair on fire and running into plate glass windows before you even know what the hell is going on. I mean, you are jumping on every rake in a 300-mile radius before you even let all the facts out. We can't take you seriously unless you lay out a series of facts that we can believe instead of blowing up headline. Like the headline on that New York Times piece could easily have been, investigation shows no casual links between Trump campaign and Russians.
Well, there you go. And he's talking about a New York Times piece where they made all this kind of speculations of deep ties between Russia and Trump. But then in the piece itself, they admit that they had no evidence. They had no real evidence that any of that existed. It was all pure speculation. Do you think the New York Times would have had a similar article about Obama and just had a bunch of speculation about deep ties with him and Iran? Maybe. No, of course not. And that's why when Trump gets up and he calls them fake news, that's why it gets so popular. You know, I had debates with people, well, they're not fake news. They're reporting on, there's so much speculation out there. There's so much bias out there that when Trump gets up, talks to the American people and says, I'm going to go around the fake news media, people are going to respond to it, whether you like it or not, and his approval ratings are going to go up. Let's take a call here real quick. Let's go to Chip in Oviedo, who actually has a comment on this. Chip, what's your take on this?
Hey, I appreciate it, Yaffee. I like your show. I think you're a young up-and-comer, and you're going to be around for a long time.
I hope so.
My thing on the media, I sit at home and watched the entire Trump press conference today, and it was pure entertainment. And I think it was great to watch. It was theater. It was unlike any politician, and Trump even at one time said, I can't believe I'm calling myself a politician. And the news outlets, especially the far left, they really just don't get him. They can't figure him out. The thing that I've observed that's changed the most in the media is it's pure entertainment now. It's not news. It's shock news. They try to come up, and everybody has their own angle, and Fox has their angle, CNN has their angle. There's your big two, but everything spins off of that. They try to shock the audiences with these headlines, and they absolutely just make stuff up. And there's no accountability. There used to be accountability with the media, and it was usually the professors at the college level who taught these people. But it's an interesting time in our country's history that we're going through. And even politicians, I don't think, are going to be politicians anymore. I can already see Mark Cuban. He's lined up. He's going to run for something as soon as Trump moves on. You know, we're going to have some, you know, rock star run for political office.
Well, Ashton Kutcher made a speech to the Senate yesterday, and I could see him running for office eventually.
We're going to see politicians are going to now turn into reality TV stars, and all of the media is going to turn into what I call shock media or tabloid journalism. That's just the way we're going, and that's my take on it. Thanks for taking my call.
I appreciate it, Chip. Good take on that. I wonder, though, there's a part of me that agrees with him, and there's a part of me that thinks in about 10 years, and this goes with the whole pendulum cycle. We read the book Pendulum and it talks about this. In about 10 years or so, a little less than 10 years, the pendulum's going to swing the other way, and people are going to get sick of all this shock value, of all this division, of all this entertainment value in politics, and it might go to the other way where you get the more standard, I mean, I don't know about the more standard politician, but get the guy who isn't just trying to entertain us every time he gets up there. I mean, Trump is definitely the entertainer-in-chief. He's the great entertainer. There's no doubt about it, but it works for him, and he knows it works. I mean, it worked for him in the campaign. But I agree, the media comes out, and they're all about shock value because it gets ratings. It gets ratings. You know, I talk about that all the time on this show. I talk about how easy it would be for me to be as controversial as possible. The best thing for me would be get on this show, throw out a bunch of really controversial statements, real controversial bombs, be as angry as I possibly could be all the time, and maybe create protests outside the station, and my ratings would shoot up, and I would be incredibly successful. But I don't want to do that because I'd lose my soul, and I care about my soul more. But I'm just saying there's no doubt that happens even in the New York Times, the Washington Post. They're having these comments. You know, the NBC and Meet the Press, they're talking about this stuff. How do we get more ratings? How do we get more people to watch? I understand media. Trust me. I work in the media. I studied media. I understand how it all works. 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. I think we're going to, in the next segment, and I've been wanting to play this all the week, and I just haven't had a chance to do it. But Jim Webb, who was a Democrat, former Democrat senator from Virginia, he ran for president shortly in the Democrat primary. He was on Meet the Press last Sunday, and he might be the only Democrat who has any common sense, if that's even possible, believe it or not. So I want to play his comments because, like I said, I try to be a voice of reason, and I try to find others who are voices of reason as well in everything that's going on. And I think he is possibly a voice of reason in all this for the Democrats. I keep giving the left so much advice. I keep giving the Democrats so much advice. If they would just listen to me, maybe they would be better. Maybe I should just stop doing it. Maybe they will listen to me eventually and actually get better, and that would be very, very bad. So Maybe I should stop doing it. 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. We're on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'll be right back.
Download the iHeartRadio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
Well, I guess I'm about to hear it from someone. I was going to play another Voice of Reason, but I have to take this call now. Because I talked about in the last segment how I could just be as controversial as possible, throw out bombs, and probably my ratings go up, but I don't want to do that. I want to be a voice of reason because I care about my soul. And apparently that's not good enough for some. So let's take this call. This should be very interesting. Ann in College Park, how are you?
Hi, Yaffee. How are you? It's
Pretty
not
good.
the point that it's not good enough for me. It's just that as a Christian, as you profess yourself to be, and I've spoken to you about this before, that it just seems beneath what Christ would want us to be doing, to be putting yourself in this arena. To me, it seems that this arena is beneath you, to be here defending or even discussing the likes of Donald Trump and the White House, Kellyanne Conway, Donald Trump, all of them. They can't tell the truth, will not tell the truth. They're spinmeisters. And to be a part of that as a Christian, it just bothers me that you are putting yourself in this arena.
And by putting myself in the arena, what does that mean?
By even being involved in this type of
in politics?
But in this type of discussion, the things that I'm hearing you say,
like what?
It just doesn't seem like it's Christian, like defending, talking about the Democrats in a negative manner. Christians don't do that. We don't get involved in stuff like that.
Why not?
You can be better used. You can be better used using your voice in other mechanisms. Anyone knows that this is a problem with what's going on in the White House. You know that, Yaffee.
I've called out Trump a lot on this show when he does something dumb.
I'm just saying, it just seems that this is not something you should be involved with. As a Christian, I don't hear any other person on that show or on basically any show that I can basically turn to that's respectful talk about how they are Christians and yet engage in this.
Well, but I mean, so Christians shouldn't engage in political discussions? I mean, these are honest questions.
No, I'm not saying that. This arena, attacking the Democrats, attacking the Republicans, this type of thing is just beneath what God wants us to do.
Well, what does God want us to do? Because, I mean, there was a lot of times where Jesus stood up for the truth and was pretty bold in what he said.
No, Yaffee, this is totally different. Like you said, it is completely gone off the rails.
Well, but I agree with you.
Entertainment, it's really not even worth.
I mean, I agree with you. It's gone off the rails, but that's why I tried to be a voice of reason through it all. I mean, that's my goal, is to be a voice of reason through everything that goes off the rails.
No, not with what I'm hearing. That's not the.
But what am I saying that? What am I saying is not being a voice of reason?
It just, you're talking about the Democrats, the way you're talking about them.
I've given the Democrats a lot of advice on what they need to change, but go ahead.
No, it's not. This is not where you're supposed to be. It really, really isn't.
Where am I supposed to be?
You should be doing something that is more uplifting.
Okay.
More uplifting. This is not. This is just completely out of what you should be doing, in my opinion. But, it's your life.
I mean, I've talked about stuff that's uplifting, and I've talked about love, and I've talked about how we can't just fight fire with fire all the time and attack the other side. But, I mean, what about standing up for truth and addressing the real issues in our country?
But as Christians, that is not what we're here to do.
What are we here to do?
Arena. It's just not what we're here to do in this political arena. This is so messy. It really is. The best thing that we can do is pray for these people.
Okay.
And use our voice for something a bit more positive than what we're seeing now on both sides of the aisle.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Well, Ann brings up a very interesting point. So I would like I'd like your take on anything that she just said from the audience out there, anybody listening. She says that a Christian like me should not be in this arena, should not be talking about politics, should not be addressing politics, should not speak up for what I believe is the truth. You know, I try to be a voice of reason. I'm certainly not perfect, but she thinks that as a Christian, I should use my voice for other things. And believe it or not, this is something that I pray about a lot. This is not, going into this business was not an easy decision for me. Originally, I wanted to be a pastor. I have been a youth pastor in the past. I've thought about doing other things in the past, but I prayed about it. And every time that I either would try to go in the ministry, God would close those doors. And he said, no, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be saying these things. And, I often look at the prophets of the Bible, for instance, and God would tell them to say these things. I'm not saying I'm getting some revelations like Isaiah or anything, but, just stick with me here. Like you read Ezekiel, and he gives Ezekiel the scrolls, and he tells Ezekiel to go out and say these things. And Ezekiel said some pretty bad things about the people at the time. He said he pretty much called them out on a lot of things at the time. And God told him, people are not going to like what you have to say. People are not going to agree with everything that you have to say, but you need to say it. And that was kind of my approach going into this, that, okay, I understand it's not going to be the most popular thing. Not everyone's going to like what I have to say, but they're going to, but they need to be said, especially about our culture. And we talk faith, culture, and politics on this show. And hopefully I can be a voice of reason. Maybe we'll talk more about this in the next hour. We have one more hour to go. A really interesting topic I think she's bringing up. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee. If you missed any of the show, make sure to catch out the podcast. We have one more hour to go. We'll be right back. I look inside of myself. So, speaking of what Ann was talking about in the last hour, if you missed it, it's talking about, Christian, should a Christian be in this business and all that stuff. At church on Sunday, I went to church Sunday. I played drums in my church. And there's a girl I know, younger than me, who I hadn't talked to in a while, that goes to the church. She came up to me and she was just asked me about what's going on in the business and everything. By the way, if you're wondering who this is, you all know who this is.
Yeah, you're the drummer at church.
I always tell people, it's funny you say that. I always tell people that I could raise someone from the dead in a church, and they would still think of me as the drummer. Like it's just they just love the drums. But yes, this is Michael Yaffee. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your voice of reason in a world that's beyond reason, and that is Tom Benson producing as well. How are you, Tom?
I am fine, and everyone who wonders, the last name is spelled Yaffee, not Yappi.
I know.
We just got a call like that. Yeah.
You said Yappy again?
Yeah.
It's because the reason why that is, that I think they hear Yaffee, but their mind has never heard that word before, so it just kind of translates it to something that's more familiar.
What's the origin of Yaffee? Is it shortened for something?
Yaffee is a Hebrew word, believe it or not. Apparently, I'm not Jewish, but apparently I have Jewish background in my family. My ancestors are from Poland, escaped Poland before the Nazis, killed everybody there. And apparently, I did not know this until college in terms of what it means. Yaffee is a Hebrew word that means beautiful. I did not know that because my family's not Jewish, and it's from my dad's side. Doesn't know a whole lot about that kind of stuff in his family. But I took, I have a religious studies degree, and I took a Judaism class, and my teacher told me that it's a Hebrew word that means beautiful. And
did he then suggest that you change your name because you're not beautiful?
He said, and you're ugly, so it doesn't fit. So Michael is based off the archangel Michael in the Bible.
Sure.
And it also means the one who is like God. So my name literally means the beautiful one who is like God.
I can't dispute that.
And then my middle name is Scott, which means from Scotland. So I'm the beautiful one who is like God from Scotland. So I usually ignore that part. But I also... this is like such a weird tangent we've gone on here. But Yaffee. And I also had to visit a synagogue, for one of my classes, for one of my religious studies classes. We had to do something outside our own faith. So I visited a synagogue. I asked them. They said, yes, that's what it means. And then I met someone from Israel once, and she also affirmed that that's what it means. And she says it's a very popular name in Israel.
Wow.
So I did not know any of this growing up. Everyone calls me Yaffee just because they like saying Yaffee. Laffy Taffy Yaffee.
Yeah.
And I should really make my own brand of Taffy.
It sounds like a nickname. Yaffee,
Yeah.
Like it should be short for something.
There have been some that I've talked to that said it might have been short for something in Poland. Yaffee ski, or I don't know.
Kozlowski.
So I don't know. But no, I hear that, all the time, and I really should make my own brand of Taffy, Yaffee Taffies. I should just do that and make a lot of money off of that.
Of course.
But yeah, I did not know that until college. I had no idea. And so it is very interesting. My family had no idea. So very interesting learning that. So speaking of this anyway, this is a whole off tangent. I was talking to this girl at church, and I knew her. I've known her for a few years now. A few years ago, she was never into politics, ever. Never, hated even talking about it, discussing it, whatever. Now she's very into it, and she's a young girl who just got married, and she told me that she's actually pleased. I'm not giving her name or anything. She told me she's pleased with what Trump's doing, actually, believe it or not. This is a very, mostly shy girl, mostly,
24, 25 there?
Yeah, I think she's 24. Just got married. And I was asking her, it's very interesting, why are you into politics now? And she said, well, one of the big reasons is Obamacare, because she doesn't have health insurance right now. Obamacare was supposed to solve that problem for a young person like her to be able to get health insurance, but she can't get it. Why? She just got married. For her and her husband, they're just a single couple. They don't even have kids or anything. For her and her husband to get health insurance, even through Obamacare, high deductible, it's like $750 a month.
Yeah.
Something crazy like that. And she said she hates Obamacare. She can't, and that whole thing really got her into politics. The reason why I bring this up is because where is Congress on this? Why isn't this getting done? I keep hearing this whole thing about Obamacare and about how they have all these different plans, but they want to keep Obamacare. They're afraid to get rid of parts of Obamacare. They have repair now instead of repeal and all this stuff. And I'm thinking, this has got to change. This is something that Congress really needs to address, because I'm hearing a lot of talk. Trump's doing a lot of things, but Congress doesn't seem to be doing anything. So we're talking about what is going to happen with Obamacare. And the only one that I've seen really address this in a real way and has real solutions and real free market and actually gets rid of the bad things in Obamacare is Rand Paul. And I've talked about this, and it was reported earlier this week by Politico, and Rand Paul said this on Politico. He was at a meeting with Senate Republicans and House Speaker Paul Ryan on repealing Obamacare. Rand Paul was so frustrated at this meeting that he left. He left the meeting. Why? Because he was frustrated with what they were saying. He said they were basically just creating another new entitlement program. They basically want to create just another type of Obamacare. And he was incredibly frustrated. And I'm with him. I'm extremely frustrated. This is a big deal because I like with my friend. My friend in church is not the only person I've talked to about this. I know so many people that have been negatively affected by this law in a real way, and it needs to change. And it's something I wish Trump would address as well. And it seemed like Trump supported Rand Paul's plan at first, but now he doesn't. Well, at least the good news is that you have a House conservatives that are working on this, and then you have Rand Paul that are working on this, and then you have the Freedom Caucus in Congress that came out yesterday in a press conference led by Rand Paul and talked about this repeal of Obamacare. And I thought Rand Paul, once again, makes such great points when it comes to this law. And I think Congress needs to get something done with this law. I'm really saying that. And I have a couple cuts here from Rand Paul in that press conference that happened yesterday. And this is the first cut here. Rand Paul talking about what his plan actually looks like.
This is a big, big day for conservative Republicans. We won in 2010 based on our position that we should repeal Obamacare and our concern for big government and debt. But Obamacare and repealing Obamacare was a big reason why we won the House in 2010. It's a big reason why we won in 2014. And it still was yet a big reason why we won the White House in 2016. We owe this to the conservatives around the country who elected us to completely repeal Obamacare. But I think if you're going to completely repeal something, you should replace it. And I've been a physician for over 20 years, and there are problems in healthcare, some that even predate Obamacare, and we are concerned with how to provide the most amount of insurance at the least amount of cost. And that's what our replacement bill does. Congressman Sanford will go into some of the details, but I'll give you three sort of principles that I talk about with it. It's going to legalize the sale of inexpensive insurance. It's going to expand health savings accounts so people can save to buy their insurance. They can use it for their deductible or their premium, for vitamins, weight loss, you name it, exercise. And it also allows individuals to join an association so that they're not left out in the cold by themselves to buy insurance in a small insurance pool. Everybody in the country, the 11 million people in the individual market, will be allowed to join an association, and these associations will give them leverage to get lower price and better insurance.
And he's exactly right on that. A big reason why they continue to win Congress and a big reason why they won the presidency is the disaster that is the Obamacare health law, the Affordable Care Act. And he laid out some really good free market solutions in there that I've talked about on this show before, and I just cannot understand for the life of me why this can't get done. Why can't this get done? This is a slam dunk win for Republicans to get this done. If they get this done, it will be very popular and it will secure their place in Congress for a long time. I'm telling you, there are regular, ordinary Americans all over this country that are furious at this healthcare law. And I know they're afraid, well, some people are going to lose their insurance or afraid about them, and some people on Medicaid. And I went over the numbers. The amount of people that are on Obamacare actually do the exchanges and not just thrown on Medicaid is extremely low, especially for the amount of money that we're paying. Not only that, but I've talked about this before. The whole point of Obamacare was to address costs, to cut costs, but costs are going up. And then it was announced this week that Humana, one of the big Obamacare, one of the big health insurance companies in the Obamacare exchanges, is pulling out entirely, not just in certain places, but entirely out of Obamacare in 2018. Entirely. And this is just one of many that have been pulling out. This is just one of many. What is Obamacare going to do? How are they going to have exchanges if there's no insurance companies in the exchanges? How is that going to work? It's not going to work is the issue. Now, Rand Paul also, and this is not getting enough attention, and it really needs to get more attention. Now, Rand Paul made a great point here in this next guy. And he was a doctor. He is a doctor. He's been in the industry. He knows how it works. His father is a doctor. Ron Paul knows how this works. And he makes a great point here on why the free market needs to be back in healthcare. And it's a point I've made before, and he makes it brilliantly. And this is what he said.
The big part of this is, as Congressman Sanford said, is a marketplace. And I'll give you an example. There were two things in ophthalmology not covered by insurance, but the price went down every year: LASIK surgery and contact lenses. Initially, contact lenses might cost you $300. And then at the end, when I was still practicing, you get them for like a couple of dollars a piece. I mean, it's incredibly cheap to buy disposable contact lenses now because of a marketplace. So when you develop health savings accounts, let's say right now 4% of the public has a health savings account. What if 30% of the public had a health savings account? What do you do when you spend your own money? You call up doctors and you ask the price. The average person that gets LASIK surgery calls 4 doctors, and they ask the price of every doctor. Try calling a doctor in America and asking the price of a gallbladder surgery. Nobody knows. It's complicated. The insurance is in between. But if you develop a real marketplace, it will drive prices down. So even though the tax credit may not help everybody, driving prices down will, and you get a real marketplace. And the other thing is if you are a good saver even of modest income, there are people who have modest income who save, put it in a health savings account. It will help them, and it also saves them on premiums. In a real marketplace, the higher deductible you choose, the more like catastrophic you choose, the lower your premium. That's the way the market works. In Obamacare, we gave people $6,000 deductibles and enormous premiums. You got no real discount. They got rid of the entire concept of insurance giving you a discount for being more responsible with your payments. We bring that back into play. So there's enormous market forces, and we believe in the market and everything else that's sold in every store, every other service except for healthcare. Let's get what made America great, which was capitalism and free markets, and put it in healthcare.
Oh, it's music to my ears, Tom Benson. It's just great stuff. Imagine a world where the free market is involved in healthcare. He actually gave an example of how it worked in the eye industry. He actually talked about how contact lenses and LASIK surgery and all that used to be expensive, but because it's in a free market, it's kind of outside the regular healthcare industry, that prices went down because of competition. And then he gave a real-world example of how most people will shop around for LASIK to get the lowest price. That's how the free market works. That's how competition works, and that is what drives down prices. And he points out that if we went to a health savings account model, that would force people to know what they're spending on their health care. And I've done this personally. I have a health savings account. So when I have to get a prescription, I had to change where I was getting my prescriptions because Walmart had it cheaper. And it forced me to think about that. Imagine if a lot more people in the healthcare industry had to think about that. They would shop around. That would force the doctors to compete. That would force the hospitals to compete. That would force the drug companies to compete for your dollars and the pharmacies to compete. Every time that happens in every other sector of the economy, prices go down. Why do we think that would not happen in healthcare? Of course it would happen in healthcare. And, I was debating a friend on Facebook about this, and he said, well, I had a health savings account once, and I didn't see them competing for my dollars. And I'm saying, well, that's because at the time, nobody else had a health savings account. Everyone was still on the insurance model. What Rand Paul is saying here is imagine if 20, 30, 40, 50% or even more were on a health savings account, that would affect the whole marketplace. Is such a common sense solution, such a slam dunk thing for the Republicans to get done, and they're not doing it. And it's incredibly frustrating. It's very frustrating. So you have Trump that's getting a lot of things done, but you have Congress that is dragging their feet, and this is a big deal. They're going to lose support, Congress, if they don't do this right. And they have a good plan already. They have a good plan from the Freedom Caucus and Rand Paul, and you have too many establishment, moderate-type Republicans in Congress that are not doing this right. They're not doing this right. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. There's a lot more we have to get into in the show. I want to talk about Netanyahu was at the White House with Trump yesterday, and he had some interesting comments. We'll talk about the whole deal that Trump wants to make, the whole two-state solution, not two-state solution. I wrote a piece on that. It's on the Beyond Reason blog on 1025WFLA.com. We'll get into that. It's also apparently the day of immigrants, which I really didn't notice out there, but apparently it's a day of immigrants where a lot of immigrants just decided not to show up to work to protest Trump and his take on immigrants. And we'll get some reaction about that. We'll go over that story as well. So much to get to. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, and we will be right back.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com, the place where we talk faith, culture, and politics. Beyond Reason Radio continues.
Yes, this is the place where we talk faith, culture, and politics, and we talk it with you here on Beyond Reason Radio. So join the movement. Give us a call at 407-916-5400. You can text to 23680. Make sure to also send me a friend request on Facebook. Send me a friend request on Facebook, and I will accept it. We had a whole conversation at the beginning of this hour how to search for me. My last name is Y-A, F as in Frank, E-E, Y-A-F-F-E-E, Michael Yaffee. Yaffee, like Laffy Taffy, Yaffee. I've been called Laffy Taffy Yaffee my whole life, so if anyone makes fun of me for that, I mean, it's not new. I'm just used to it by now. I'm just saying, by the way, I'm going to be hosting Good Morning Orlando next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so you'll get to hear not only me right now, not only me tomorrow evening, because tomorrow I'll be on 6 to 7 p.m. as well. But you'll hear me next week in the morning. And I know, like we said at the beginning, it's Yaffee New Year. It's the year of Yaffee. So it seems to be like it's headed in that direction. So if you want to call in 407-916-5040, you can text to 23680. By the way, I just got a comment on Facebook Live from, I don't know how to pronounce the name, Kishori Kesha. And it says, "Hi, Michael from New Zealand." So Beyond Reason Radio is going worldwide, all the way to New Zealand. So hi, I'm glad. I'm glad I can be a voice of reason for New Zealand as well. So I want to talk because today is apparently the day without immigrants. I really didn't notice, which I'm not sure what that says. No, I mean, I'm not against immigrants, and this is the big lie. The big lie when it comes to this whole being against immigrants thing, obviously Trump is not against immigrants. I mean, his wife is an immigrant, for crying out loud. He can't be against immigrants. He's against illegal immigration, but it's the biggest lie that the left has thrown out there. So I wanted to play here. Well, here's the report from Fox News on this whole day without immigrants.
This effort, called the Day Without Immigrants, shut down businesses of all kinds. Philadelphia restaurateur David Pena says President Trump is painting immigrants with too broad a brush.
We want to let them know that we're not criminals. We're workers. We support our country.
In New York, immigrants' rights advocate Angela Fernandez says this is a movement that didn't need a lot of organizing.
Right now, people are scared, and it's not just undocumented immigrants, it's documented immigrants as well.
During a news conference, President Trump says border security efforts of his administration is saving lives every day. Gernal Scott, Fox News.
Say it with me. Illegal immigrants. Illegal, not undocumented. Illegal immigrants. Can we all say that together? 1, 2, 3. Illegal immigrants. I know. It's just, how is this so hard to understand? But not only that, but the report they were talking to people, even documented immigrants are scared.
Why?
Why? Why? You have nothing to be scared. There is no way Trump wants to get rid of legal immigrants. He doesn't want to.
He's got too many other things to worry about.
Yeah, exactly. This is a very good point. But, this is one thing that one of these days I need to do a show and really look into the facts. I've heard them out there of immigration, the history of immigration in this country, because it is the most misunderstood. One of the most misunderstood things in politics right now is immigration. Gun control is the other one. But immigration is one of the most misunderstood things because people act like they say, well, we're a nation of immigrants. We've always let everyone in. No, never. Never in the history of this country have we just let everyone in.
There's been quotas for decades and hundreds of years.
Yep.
And certain countries had different quotas.
Exactly. There was quotas. Yes, there has always been quotas. And even when they were quotas, they had to come in through legally. They had to go through Ellis Island. There was usually checked to make sure they didn't have diseases and other things. And some of them were deported. There have been major deportations in the past. Eisenhower had major deportations. And there actually have been years where we had no immigration, pauses in immigration. Why is that? Because we wanted time for assimilation. So this whole idea that if we limit legal immigration, that we limit some immigrants and then we crack down on illegal immigration, that is somehow against the history of this country and the history of what we stood for is completely a lie. It's the biggest lie in politics today. And not only that, so now we have, I know there's a lot of lies out there in politics, so it's hard to come up with the biggest lie. Well, it's at least one of the biggest lies in politics today. But so we have the day without immigrants, and the whole other thing is the biggest lie. They say Trump is against immigrants. He's not against all immigrants. He's against illegal immigrants. Thank you, Tom Benson, for doing that for me. I appreciate it. But I was looking at some people. There were some there's some reaction from conservatives out there on Twitter on this, and I just love what I was reading here. And Andrew Powell said, "Happy day without immigrants. The day where leftists and legal immigrants celebrate not knowing the difference between legal and illegal." That's good stuff. Matt Walsh, he said, "Well, if you got your job taken away by an illegal immigrant, today's the day to go get it back." I love that. Another Joe Walsh said, "By the way, the vast majority of immigrants who came here legally oppose illegals in this country. So there you go, some reaction from people. I mean, the whole thing that, we're not going to work and show how much this country needs us. Seems like the country's going just fine, but nobody's against legal immigration. In fact, Trump pointed out when he did the whole Muslim, I almost said it. I almost fell for the leftist lie. When he did the limit on immigration from those countries in the Middle East, he also pointed out how many came here just fine. Thousands of people traveled to the United States in that time just fine. Just fine. So what is the deal here? It's just more lies, more misunderstanding of what's going on. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. Much more to get to. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee, and we will be right back.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. Your safe space for conservative thought, not for political correctness. Yaffee is back right now.
Yes, this is Beyond Reason Radio, where we talk faith, culture, and politics. Don't forget, I will be on tomorrow night for an hour as well, Friday night from 6 to 7 p.m. right there on prime time. So if you're on your way home driving, make sure to turn on News Radio 102.5 WFLA, and I will be on. But if you miss any of the show, make sure to check the podcast of the show anywhere podcasts are available. You can download the Beyond Reason Radio app or on iHeartRadio. In fact, if you go to the 1025WFLA.com page, click on the Beyond Reason blog page under Good Morning Orlando, you can find my blog posts and my podcast there as well. And I wrote a piece today on Israel and on Netanyahu and on the meeting between Trump and Netanyahu. And I hadn't seen Netanyahu, who was very happy, much happier than when the last time he was here with Obama. There's no doubt about it that Netanyahu likes Trump a lot better than he likes Obama, especially at the end of the Obama administration when he got the whole UN condemning Israel and all that stuff, and they didn't veto it, and it was just crazy. So it seemed like that Trump and Netanyahu will be much better friends. And Trump came out and he actually said something interesting. He was talking about, I was for a two-state solution before. I don't know if I'm for that. I want both sides to be happy, yada, yada, yada. Trump has said before in the campaign that he wants to make a deal, wants this to be the best deal he's ever done, the deal of deals of Trump. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit because it's just the intentions are good. I understand what he's saying, but this whole make a deal, it's not a game show, dealing with the Palestinians or Israel. It's not a business transaction. He makes it sound like it's a business transaction.
And the origins date back thousands of years.
Oh, of course. Yeah, exactly. And well, here, before I get to any of that, Netanyahu yesterday talked about what would take for there to be peace there, what it would take and what the Palestinians need to do first before there can be any kind of negotiations. And when you listen to what Netanyahu said, it's not very unreasonable. It's not unreasonable to think that this should be the case. But it can't happen. The Palestinians won't do this. This is what he said.
Rather than deal with labels, I want to deal with substance. It's something I've hoped to do for years in a world that's absolutely fixated on labels and not on substance. So here's the substance. There are two prerequisites for peace that I laid out several years ago, and they haven't changed. First, the Palestinians must recognize the Jewish state. They have to stop calling for Israel's destruction. They have to stop educating their people for Israel's destruction. Second, in any peace agreement, Israel must retain the overriding security control over the entire area west of the Jordan River, because if we don't, we know what will happen. Because otherwise, we'll get another radical Islamic terrorist state in the Palestinian areas, exploding the peace, exploding the Middle East. Now, unfortunately, the Palestinians vehemently reject both prerequisites for peace. First, they continue to call for Israel's destruction inside their schools, inside their mosques, inside the textbooks. You have to read it to believe it. They even You know, they even deny, Mr. President, our historical connection to our homeland.
So he basically said for there to be any real negotiations to begin, first, the Palestinians have to agree that Israel has a right to exist. Has a right to exist. But they can't even do that. They can't even go that far. You know, when John Kerry made his big speech before he left office, before Obama left office, talking after the UN thing, talking about the two-state solution, he said all this stuff. There were Palestinians who came out and hated John Kerry's approach. Why? Because even the two-state solution cements forever Israel's right to exist. And the Palestinians do not think they have a right to exist. The second point Netanyahu made is that Israel has a right to protect itself. It has a right to its own security. And yet the Palestinians won't agree to that. I mean, how do you have a deal? How do you make a deal? How do you negotiate with people who believe that you don't have a right to exist? You know, if I came into a negotiation with you, Tom Benson, how could I negotiate with you if you believed that I should be killed right now, and that's it? Would there be any way for us to negotiate on anything?
And part of the problem you have also with the Muslims is the fact that there's two factions, the Sunnis and the Shiites, who hate each other.
Well, yeah, that's true. But in terms of just the Palestinians, you have Hamas, who was elected by the Palestinians on the whole purpose of committing terrorist attacks against Israel.
And Hamas is now getting cozy with Iran.
I know. And the whole thing is crazy. So how do you come to a point where you can negotiate with people who think you don't have a right to exist? And then he talked about this, where they teach their children that Israel and Jews are less than human and that they should be extinguished and destroyed. How do you come to a point where you can make any kind of deal, where you can make any kind of negotiation? And that's one of my issues with this whole thing, is we keep talking about two-state solution. I have heard, literally, this my entire life. The two-state solution I've heard in my entire life. I'm 30 years old. It's been talked about forever. Israel has given them back some land, and it's never enough. It will never be enough, because what they don't understand is this isn't about land. Nobody cares about that little sliver of land in Israel. It's not about land. It's not about settlements. It's about a radical religious ideology that exists in the Palestinian areas that hate Israel and that hate the Jews. That is what this is about. A lot of the solutions could be solved if the Middle Eastern Islamic countries around the Palestinian areas would help those parts build up and be a better area, that you could solve a lot of these problems. But that they don't want to solve the problem because they want to keep the narrative of hating Israel. So if we're not going to address the radical terrorism, religious ideology that exists in those areas, we are never going to solve the problem. And this is the other point I have. And I'm bringing this up because Trump keeps talking about a deal. He keeps talking about it like it's a business transaction, like it's one of his real estate deals he had in New York City or something, and we could just kind of come in together and make a deal. And it's just like, okay, it's incredibly naive. It's not going to happen. You can't make a deal because it's not a business transaction. It's a radical religious war, basically, on their side. Israel doesn't want it to be that way, but the Palestinians want it to be that way. So you talk about a two-state solution, it's not going to work. The other problem I have with all of this is often when I hear the UN talk about this and other countries talk about this, and even Trump talk about it, they put the Palestinians and they put Hamas on equal footing with Israel. So they put them on equal moral footing. Why? Why do we do that? Why should Hamas be anywhere in considered equal at all to Israel? Israel is better for the world economically. It's better for the world culturally. It's better for the world morally. It's a better society. They're a better ally for us. They have done so many great things for that area and so many great things for the world, so much better than Hamas. So many better things than Hamas. Yet we still say, well, there should be equal to the Palestinians, Hamas. We're going to have negotiations where they're treated as equal. That's completely absurd, and it's completely ridiculous. How about we say that Hamas is less? How about we say that the PLO is less? How about we say that they don't deserve an equal footing, that maybe they should shape up and change their ways before we can even start these negotiations? I know that's somewhat extreme. I know these diplomats and politicians will never say that, but it needs to be said. How about we just support Israel in its goals? How about we just support Israel in expanding the settlements because they're the better country and they're our allies? That's my take on this. 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. We're on Facebook Live as well. You can comment there as well. Make sure to send me a friend request. I think in the last segment of the show, I think I'm going to go ahead and address what Ann talked about in the last segment of the last hour. Because she mentioned, and we had a caller, Ann from College Park, and she thinks that I should not be doing this. She thinks I should not be doing this. As a Christian, I should not be in this business. I should not be calling out Democrats. I should not be talking politics. I should not be in this arena because I'm a Christian. And if anybody wants to call in on that, you can as well. Because it's an interesting debate. Because she says my voice would be better for more uplifting things. Maybe I'd be a pastor or something. I had thought about being a pastor in the past. I had been a youth pastor in the past. And so we'll go over my take on that. And, should I not be doing this? Am I just, making things worse? And I told her I want to be a voice of reason. That's why I'm in this. We have to talk about these controversial things because they affect our society and they affect our faith, really, in this society. So we'll talk about that. And I have some verses that I want to address because this is something I think about a lot and something I pray about a lot. And she said she prays for me. So we'll talk about that. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime. Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
Yes, welcome back. I am your host, Michael Yaffee. One more segment to go. We've been on since 7 p.m., and if you miss any of the show, I will post the podcast of the show anywhere podcasts are available. You can download the Beyond Reason Radio app if you missed any of this show. So, and I got some text on this, by the way, which I'll read, but I'm actually glad she called because Ann from College Park called at the end of the last hour, and she talked about how she doesn't believe I should be in this business. She doesn't believe I should do what I do. She doesn't believe I use my voice the right way because I'm a Christian. I shouldn't be doing things like calling out Democrats, talking about politics, being in this arena, and all of that stuff. That as a Christian, it's not what we should be doing. And it's an interesting debate. It's something, I've thought about that before. Should I be doing this? I don't want to be part of the problem. And that's why I always say I want to be a voice of reason in all of this. So, but should a Christian be doing this? Because I had thought about being a pastor in the past. I had thought about, being a writer, doing, all kinds of other things. I could have done other things. I have college degrees. I used to be a youth pastor. I'm also a musician. So, why go into this business? Well, I prayed about it a lot. And, anytime I even thought about going away from radio or whatever, God always pulled me back. He always made sure this is where I was supposed to be. So I stopped fighting it. This is where I'm supposed to be. And I had a texter say, so as Christians, are we not to address the taking of unborn lives, the moral decay of our society? He said, keep on keeping on. We need voices of reason. One person said. Another person said, tell Ann to read her Bible. I doubt she would understand what she reads. She doesn't need to be judging others if she truly believes she isn't. So, it is kind of interesting. And Tom Benson brought this up, earlier. She talked about how Ann thinks I shouldn't be doing this as a Christian, yet she listens every day. So she listens to the show, and so she's, as a Christian, is able to listen to the show, but I shouldn't be doing this. So, but it's an interesting debate. As a Christians, how do we react? And I've talked about this on the show before. I've talked about how we can disagree, but how we can't be one who just always fights fire with fire. We can't be just as bad as the other side. So how should Christians react? But should Christians call out bad things? Should Christians talk about these issues? Should Christians be controversial? Because she's saying I should just be more uplifting. Well, I often go back to Ezekiel, the book of Ezekiel in the Bible, when I think about this. And you read any of the prophets and you read any of the Bible, it's full of conflict. It's full of hard truths. It's full of things like this. And you look at Ezekiel chapter 2 and what God told Ezekiel to do. Here it is, starting verse 1. He said, "Then he said to me, Son of man, stand on your feet that I may speak with you. As he spoke to me, the Spirit entered me and set me on my feet, and then I heard him speaking to me. Then he said to me, Son of man, I am sending you to the sons of Israel, to a rebellious people who have rebelled against me, and they and their fathers have transgressed against me to this very day. And I'm sending you to them who are stubborn and obstinate, children, and then you shall say to them, Thus says the Lord God, as for them, whether they listen or not, for they are a rebellious house, they will know that a prophet has been among them. And you, son of man, neither fear them nor fear their words. Though thistles and thorns are with you, and you sit on scorpions, neither fear their words nor be dismayed at their presence, for they are a rebellious house. But you shall speak my words to them, whether they listen or not, for they are rebellious. And then he said, Listen to what I'm speaking to you. Do not be rebellious like the rebellious house. Open your mouth and eat what I'm giving to you. And he gives him the scrolls. You look, you read the whole book of Ezekiel, you read the book of Isaiah, you read the book of Jeremiah, you read what the prophets are saying. He told the prophets to go out and say the hard things. He told the prophets to go out and call out people when they were being rebellious, when they were going against God, when they were contributing to the moral decay of their society. He told them to do that. He told them to go out and say the hard truth. And he said, people are not going to listen to you. They're rebellious people. They don't want to hear the truth, but you have to go out and say the hard truths, whether they like it or not. There's always this misconception of Christianity as well, and Jesus, that he was just a loving teddy bear that never said anything controversial, that was just all about peace all the time. That's not what Jesus was about. This is what he said, actually, in Matthew. He said, Do not suppose that I have come to bring peace to the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life will save it, will find it. For my sake will find it. So, what did he say there? Why would he say, I didn't come to bring peace but the sword? What does that mean? Well, it doesn't mean violence. That's not what he meant. But what he was saying is he came to bring truth. See, Jesus said a lot of controversial things. He called out a lot of people. Was Jesus not being very Christian when he called out the Pharisees for the evil things they were doing against their own people? Who were government leaders in the time, by the way. Was he not supposed to do that because it wasn't exactly loving? No, of course Jesus was supposed to do it. When he was God, he can do whatever he wants, but it was because it's the truth. Were the prophets not supposed to call out the evil of their generation because it might offend some people? It's not as uplifting as it should be? Of course not. Of course they were called specifically to do that because it was to warn the people, because there is a part of God. God is love, but God is also just. And God is also truth. So if we're going to come out and we're going to talk about what Christians should do, Christians should not ignore the hard truths of our society. Christians should not ignore what needs to be said in our society. They're calling me out as a Christian that I shouldn't be saying these things. I should just talk about love. Yes, I do want to fight, evil with good. I do want to talk about love, but I'm not going to ignore the hard truths that people need to listen to just because some people might be offended by it. Some people might not be uplifted by it. Jesus said things that offended people. Jesus said things that were not uplifting to people, but it needs to be said because it is the truth, and the truth is what should matter above all things. So I'm not going to just leave what I do because I'm not going to just leave what I do because I'm going to be afraid to say the truth. That's my take on it. I'm not sure exactly where that came from. Got a little passionate there. But I will be on tomorrow night as well to be the voice of reason and the voice of truth in a world that is beyond reason. I appreciate you all for listening. If you missed any of the show, you can check out the podcast of the show anywhere podcasts are available. Make sure to push the share button, by the way, because I don't have any kind of big advertising budget, so I can only get out there by you, spreading the word. So push the share button, share with your friends if you like the show. and I would greatly appreciate this. I thank you all for listening. Pray for me, and I will pray for you as well. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, and I will check you guys next time.